Welcome to CX Today with me, David Dungay. Today I have with me two gentlemen, Erwin Lazar, President and Principal Analyst of MetroG, and Andy Dignan, Senior VP of Global Partners and Services at Five9. So welcome to the show, guys. How are we today?
Doing well. Great. Thank you so much for having us.
Excellent. So today we're going to be talking about customer migration journeys, and this is a channel conversation today. So I'm really excited to see, how it goes and where we get to, what we uncover. So, but before we get into the conversation, perhaps we could do a few introductions. Andy, should we start with you? Do you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and Five9?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, David. So. As you mentioned, Andy Dignan, I lead our overall partner business, right? And when we look at what that means to Five9, that's all the large partner ecosystem that we have, whether it's referral partners, resellers, all of our SI partners, ISV partners, we're going to get deep into that. But that's one part of the business. And the other part is our services business, in terms of how we service our customers, implement, support. So it's been a great run here at Five9. I've been here for just over 2.5 years, and I think it's been a great time to come here, joined here from Cisco, but really I've been in the contact center for my entire career, about 20 years, and keeps getting better. So really excited to have the conversation today.
Great. And Erwin, you've done a few of these videos now, so I'm sure many of our CX readers will be familiar, but for those who are not, give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and MetroG.
Yeah, thank you. So MetroG is just about a 7-month-old company. We spun out of a company called Emergence Research back in January, which started in 2002. So we've been at this for a little over 18, almost 19 years now. And we spend our time going out and gathering data from end user organizations, specifically trying to understand what they're deploying and why. And then what are the characteristics of successful companies? So what are companies that, specific to say the contact center area, are seeing improvements in customer service and satisfaction scores, reduction in agent turnover? What are they doing differently from others? So I've been an analyst now for going on about 20 years now. Prior to that, my background was in network engineering and operations.
Wow. So an analyst for 20 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of change in just the last year, particularly, since March 2020, we've seen this huge migration to cloud. But let's go to Andy first, though, and ask, what kind of challenges and problems have your partners been experiencing over the last 12 months, particularly when it comes to deploying, and supporting remote agents?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think any partner right now had already been dealing with the volume of how do we help our customers get from on-prem to the cloud, right? And if you think about the overall collaboration stack, whether it's UC, meetings, messaging, contact center, it was always sort of the long tail, right? Because it was the most complex, most user impacting, agent impacting, and customer impacting. And so as we like to talk about with what's happened since last March, really we've almost compressed 10 years of digital transformation, right, into a year and a half, and really that put a lot of stress, I guess, on partners. But I think most of them have risen to the challenge, right? If you look at what's happened over the last 18 months, they really have delivered, and what we've seen is many customers kind of looked at this in phases, right? I like to call it 3 different phases. Phase 1 was, all right, wow, I'm on-prem today. I need to send all of my agents home. We just need to do a very quick reaction and let's move to the cloud. And that was kind of phase 1. The second wave of customers were, hey, I was already in the cloud, but maybe I didn't necessarily support omni-channel or all the various applications that I might need to be able to do. And then phase 3 with the customers, kind of where we're at now, which is we're coming out of the pandemic, and really now what's our CX strategy? And so this is a great time, I think, for channel partners to truly look at, okay, we helped customers get to the cloud. That's kind of the bits and bytes, right? More of maybe the technical piece. Now it's really about how do we deliver business impacting solutions, right? Really to help our customers transform. And so again, I think this is where most partners, they either have sold or implemented a lot of these on-prem customers. And now's really the time for them to deliver on really the huge value add that they bring. So that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah. Erwin, how does that marry with what you've been seeing in the market over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I think it matches up pretty nicely with what we've seen. So as Andy talked about, you've seen this rapid rush toward the cloud. We saw more than 65% of participants in our most recent study say that the pandemic has caused them to accelerate their cloud plans. So I agree with what Andy said in terms of we saw 10 years of digital transformation down into 2 months. And so what that's created from a partner standpoint as well as an end user standpoint is, okay, we've implemented a lot of cloud applications. In many cases, they've been a rush to get to the cloud. So now how do we take a step back and do it right? How do we take advantage of the features that we have and train our agents and support personnel in taking advantage of those capabilities? How do we integrate maybe with applications that we might still have on-prem, or if we've got a multitude of different cloud applications, how do we integrate those? And then how do we implement management? And so we understand what our agents are seeing, what they're experiencing. Are we actually delivering additional value to our customers? What are our pain points? So getting that kind of management and analytics piece into play. And I think one other kind of key trend we've seen from the contact center side over the last 12 months is agent turnover has gone up. This has been a very tough market for a lot of folks, and a lot of people have found either difficulty working from home or challenges related to their local environment, economy, whatever country they're working out of. So we saw a spike in agent turnover in the last year. So as you're trying to implement cloud, get people onto the cloud and give them access to all these wonderful new features, you kind of have to make sure you're training those new people that are coming in as well.
Yeah, there's obviously a lot of activity going on in the market. From a migration point of view, the latest stat I saw was 85% of businesses they're actually still yet to make that leap to cloud. They're still on prem. So I guess first of all, Erwin, are you still seeing that kind of volume of people still with that sort of traditional on-premise offering? And then, what are your expectations in terms of the channel and their ability to deliver that sort of migration journey?
Yeah, our data showed about a third of companies that are still on-prem and planning to stay that way. A lot of the folks that are still on-prem are kind of somewhere in their cloud journey, meaning either they're moving 100% from on-prem to cloud, or they're trying to take advantage of cloud services that they can potentially overlay and integrate or potentially use for different scenarios. So depending on how many contact centers I have, maybe some I'm going to move to cloud initially, and then others I may keep on premise a little bit longer until I can figure out how to do things like back-end application integration and so on. And that's really a big opportunity for the partners, is to help these organizations with getting to cloud right, not just rushing to move to cloud, but figuring out how do we integrate our legacy applications. Again, I talked about things like management and analytics, and then helping them figure out what's the right mix of cloud, what's the right cloud provider, and then how do I, how do I make sure that I'm helping customers make intelligent decisions?
Yeah. So, Andy, the channel, are they set to really deliver this cloud journey in as Erwin puts it, the right way?
Yeah, I think they are. And if it's kind of interesting as well is if you looked at the pre-pandemic, if you looked at the why Five9 pitch deck, the first half was convincing the customer why to go to cloud. We've basically been able to ditch those first handful of slides. Right? We're kind of past that conversation, but yeah, I do think the other thing that partners bring to the table is, and Erwin hit on it earlier, is the high agent turnover. I think if you look at the knowledge worker coming out, I don't know, Erwin, what you guys are seeing, but if you look at the knowledge worker, yeah, certainly at home working is sort of going to be here to stay. But I think a lot of knowledge workers are going to go back into the office, kind of a mix of a hybrid world. But if you look at the contact center, if you look at the overall, you got a $24 billion TAM for contact center. You have, upwards of 50 billion if you bring in WFE and all the other components. But the labor market, is hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And this is the cost, and that includes real estate cost and training and enablement. And so coming out of the pandemic, a lot of companies are saying, hey, no, we're really going to adapt this work from home agent model. And it's not just the contact center pieces. It's the UC side of things, right? It's meetings. It's how do you bring all of that together? And I think that's where, if you look at a Five9, we're purely focused on that, on the CCaaS part of the business. Partners can bring together all of the technology and consulting and pieces to make that agent's life a lot easier. So that's kind of, one piece I think that's going to be a big differentiator for them.
Okay, well, sticking with you, Andy. We have seen a lot of change in the last 12 months. The channel, one of the greatest plus points, going for channel is their ability to adapt, be nimble and agile in situations like this. But how are you helping your partners, really grasp hold of these opportunities and adapt to some of the sort of new buying behaviors we're seeing in the market?
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I mean, partners, I spent kind of the first decade of my career in the partner space, running partner businesses. Then I spent a big chunk of time at Cisco, obviously a very channel-led company, and then now here at Five9. And it's always been amazing to me to see how the channel does adapt and evolve, right? You go back to, hey, it was really a long time ago, it was around the transaction, right? To say, how can I resell it? And that was one bit. Now, truly, partners are making that leap. Most of them are, right? I think there's a lot of disruption, I would say, that's happened over the last couple of years in the channel space. But the ones that have thrived and survived, they've come out, bigger, better, and stronger. And we're seeing that. If you look at what we're doing at Five9, a big chunk of what we're doing is we're not focusing on the transaction necessarily. If we did, we'd purely go after partners and say, bring us your leads and we're going to do everything, right? But ultimately, for us to be able to grow, we're going after partners that truly want to bring a value add. They're vested in contact center. And so really what we focus on is partners who want to build a CX practice. Either they already have one or they're on that journey. And so we're launching a new Five9 University. We're launching a new partner portal, tons and tons of content. So a huge amount of the energy that we're putting in is specific to enabling them. New certifications, everyone loves certifications, right? So, and I think the other piece that's been pretty interesting is at Five9, previous to when I joined and others, when then Rowan Trollope joined, our CEO from Cisco, what I would say was we weren't super mature, right? And I actually look at that now as a benefit because we're able to truly start fresh, if you will, in terms of how we build that content, how we build the programs. And so that's really where, again, we're spending a lot of our time and talent and investment.
Yeah, I mean, for some of those partners, Andy, that are watching today, who might be sort of sitting there thinking, really, I need to build a CX first business. What would you say to those partners? How do they really transition their business to become, with CX at the front, the fore of their business activities?
Yeah, kind of to Erwin's point as well. The goal is not to focus on, hey, how do we just bring over everything that we're doing on-prem into the cloud? And oftentimes the first step that requires is many partners may have spent a lot of time building resources who could go implement the servers, stand them up, spin the disks. A lot of those resources now have to be focused on that front-end consulting piece, right? And so that's kind of the first step that we talk about with our partners is, hey, let's look at when you're building a CX practice, let's look at what, the number of resources and where they fit. And a lot of them have to be in that consulting side to kind of build that plan, build that CX journey. And then the other piece is, and obviously, with the advent of cloud, it's not just purely cloud, but it's what's enabled cloud is the underpinnings of that are very simple APIs to use. And if you think about a CX journey, there's a lot of integrations. You need integrations into your CRM system, your ERP platform. And so partners that have a lot of that development expertise that could take that CX journey that was built by the consulting teams, execute on that with development resources. That's really where we suggest partners start. And a lot of them already kind of started down that path. And the ones who aren't, we're building a lot of enablement strategies to help them.
Yeah. So, I mean, Erwin, why are we suddenly seeing, CX become the focal point for differentiation in the market right now?
Yeah, I think because there's an opportunity for organizations to differentiate themselves through better customer service, through being more responsive to customers. It's obviously in a lot. It depends, obviously on the industry, but it's one of the areas where you can get out ahead still of your customers, especially if you're in more of a commoditized. Maybe cost is the primary determinant of what people are willing to buy. That you can now differentiate through better customer service. And again, I think to Andy's point. there needs to be that, or there is that opportunity for an evolution of the channel partners. I mean, we saw this in the UC space over the last few years, where companies that were focused on, we go in and set up systems and deploy phones and, manage your voice quality for you. They have struggled to move into this new cloud world, where a lot of the skill sets that are required of the partners are things like application integration and API capabilities, the ability to leverage CPaaS services and integrate additional functions and features in, the ability to look at workflows and really get to know their customers and understand how can we specifically tailor solutions like Five9 to better improve the typical customer interaction that you might have. So, and then also even integrating, as Andy mentioned earlier, the integrating contact center into the rest of the communication portfolio to enable agents to have access to back-end resources, so that they can, again, be more responsive to customers. And again, I mentioned earlier that ability to set up a management environment that really allows people to understand, are the investments we're making paying what's the ROI? Is there a measurable benefit in terms of customer retention, customer upsell, customer satisfaction, and so on. So I think those are all the challenges for partners. And again, I think you're going to see that the partners that are in that mindset of, hey, we're really good at turning up a system and then walking away, really have to become much more of almost application developers and business process improvement specialists.
Yeah, and one of the other things, Erwin, too, that you mentioned there was what we see also is partners who, some people like to say, eat your own dog food, or, the other ones say, like, drink your own champagne. The ones that are disrupting themselves in terms of how are they kind of a shining light in terms of how they handle customers, right? So even how you enable the partners' employees and the tools that they deploy, right? We have a lot of programs where we want our partners to use Five9 as the technology, right, at a pretty low cost, and then ultimately deploy those so that they become kind of a model of CX for their customers. So that's one of the kind of angle that we're focused on as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, from a pandemic perspective, we're, time's kind of lost the whole essence of meaning at the moment. But, we're over a year since the beginning of the pandemic. How much of this, UCaaS and CCaaS story is still being driven by the aftermath of that pandemic, and how much of this is, was inevitable anyway? And
yes, it's a great question, right? I still remember March 10th sitting in SFO Airport, over a year ago, going, okay, maybe this won't be bad for a couple of weeks. So here we are. But I think we talk a lot about this, right? And I think it really depends on the customer, but for the most part, customers are now looking at, okay, what is phase two? We're definitely coming out of the pandemic, and certainly there's parts of the world like India, we're still having some challenges. That's not great to see, but we're fully not out of the woods. I think everyone agrees that, but I think we're coming to that tipping point now where that strategy is, okay, how are we going to operate in this new normal? And it really is a wide ranging view from our customers. I guess the one thing everyone agrees on is it will be different. What we don't know yet is, just how different. And so really that's the approach when we go in. If I look at our services business, when we go into a new customer or even an existing customer, that's where a lot of the conversations are. And really that guides what's the next steps. And if you're an existing customer who's already gone to the cloud, so something we just recently launched, we call it the CX maturity model. And it's basically kind of a tool that customers, partners can go in and kind of figure out where on the curve they are in their maturity of a CX practice. And again, for the customers who are on cloud today, they're now looking at, okay, what's next? And a lot of it is in that AI and automation space. So how do they leverage and leverage AI and automation to make a better customer experience, but also an agent experience, right? We now have, again, as Erwin mentioned, a lot of high turnover with agents. How do we let agents bring that empathy to the customer conversations and not get bogged down in a lot of the mundane kind of transactions? And AI truly has come a long way. So that's really kind of the next step for customers who have gone to cloud. The ones who are on-prem, it's kind of interesting now. It was always step one was, hey, we'll get off on-prem and go to the cloud. But we're actually seeing customers now going, okay, look, we're going to go to the cloud. But look, why don't we just go to AI and automation to start with something like voice bots and chat bots and IVA, and to get really rapid, great CX, and then we can kind of come back in and go to the cloud. And it's really not a one size fits all. And so lots of conversations like that. But I think it's a great time for, I think, any partner or vendor like us in the overall space. But I think that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, well, Andy, you mentioned AI there. Erwin, I'm really interested in your opinion on this. Developing an AI strategy. How essential is that in realizing the sort of the CX dream, or realizing the benefits that CX can deliver a business today?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think it's critical both to keep up with competitors as well as to potentially look for areas to get out in front of them. We have seen just tremendous interest in AI within our research. It's one of the biggest areas that the companies are investing in. The number, the capabilities, and the amount of features that are available now through contact center platform providers like Five9, as well as through overlay or standalone offerings, are continuing to increase. We think that we're seeing some of the core areas that people are looking at leveraging AI is to improve self-service, to improve predictive analytics so that you can better understand potentially the nature of a call, recognize when somebody's having trouble. A lot of the big challenges that companies have faced as they've gone to this work from home model is agent supervision. So it used to be, you walked around the contact center and you could plug into somebody's phone line and listen to conversation, hear, tone of voice, things like that. That's really difficult. In fact, arguably impossible to do when you're not in the same room as the agents. So again, taking advantage of AI algorithms that would allow supervisors to be notified when there might be a problem with a call. And then even using AI to improve things like security. We're starting to see investments in voice recognition and the ability to for people now to authenticate themselves to different services using their voice. That's becoming a big area as companies, especially in the contact centers in certain industries like financial, healthcare, are dealing with fraud and trying to minimize the potential that people are coming into the contact center and trying to social engineer into someone's accounts or hack in or things like that.
Yeah. So, Andy, to you on that sort of AI question, from a partner perspective, is it essential now then that the partners must become experts in the world of AI when it comes to this, or is that your job?
No, I think what our job is to provide the technology right behind it, right, and partners, and then make it simple for partners, right? If you go back to the let's just call it the early self-service days. I mean, you had to go hire a bunch of speech scientists to do all of the tuning for a great speech engine. But now with advancements in the AI technologies, you don't need to necessarily you don't need to be a speech scientist to be able to tune this, right? We're actually making some very simple tools that allow you to train the data, right? That's a big piece around AI, is around training that data. And if you can make it very simple for the application, that's going to make partners' lives a lot easier, because the last thing we want is for partners to have to go turn themselves into a product company, right? We want them to do what they do well, which is consult with customers, deliver the technology, and then that ongoing piece, Erwin mentioned that's a really key part of it for partners, is how do they ongoing with their customers help them maximize and get the benefit out of this. And AI specifically is something that I think is purpose built for a managed services type offering, because it's not something you just set up once and then you forget it. It's daily training, tuning, looking at the use cases. And so, that's where I think partners are going to be able to shine. I think it is on them to do that consulting piece and that ongoing. And, at Five9 anyway, we spend a lot of time, especially our CTO, Jonathan Rosenberg, our head of AI. Every time he talks to me, he tells me about the technology, and I always go, okay, well, tell me what the partner's going to see. And he knows that's coming, and so he's building that into the products.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we're coming towards the end of today's session, but before we leave today, I'd like to just get a bit of a forward-looking, thought from you both. What's exciting for you both over the next 12 months? Erwin, should we start with you?
Yeah, so I think again we're getting past that point of does cloud make sense? Should we go to cloud? As Andy mentioned earlier, those conversations are long done. It's now how do we go to cloud? How do we go to cloud effectively, and how do we leverage the benefits of it? So the things that we're watching that we think are really going to again hopefully improve customer service overall, give all of us a better experience when we're dealing with with companies that we work with. The use of analytics. We talked about AI investments, companies that are starting to see CX as a differentiator and know that they have to do it right in order to succeed in today's world. Enabling self-service. We talked about AI to improve agent operations, to deliver more self-service type features, automate processes, improve measure business metrics, and so on. And then I think the last area that we haven't really talked about that we're starting to see a lot of interest in from the contact center side, and again, I think another opportunity for partners to help their customers is agent metrics, agent performance metrics. How do we make sure that our agents are happy and satisfied and not feeling overwhelmed and are able to take advantage of all these really cool new features that are coming to the market so rapidly? So we're starting to see companies starting to think about agent wellness as a means of reducing that turnover that we talked about earlier. So that's something we're watching as well over the next, I'd say, 12 months or so.
Excellent. And Andy, what's exciting to you over the next sort of 12 months or so?
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer in three parts since we're always customer first. To Erwin's point, I'm looking forward to customers truly now, heading down that true CX journey path, so that they can deliver, a better customer experience. If you think about the partner lens, what I'm looking forward to, truly having spent most of my career again in the UC and contact center space, but really the partner space, a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues that I'm looking forward to helping them transform their own CX practices. And then from a Five9 perspective, obviously selfishly we want to continue to have success, and I think we will. But really, I think what I'm most looking forward to is truly delivering on that overall AI strategy, both from an agent perspective, agent health and wellness, I think is super important. It was just recently, in May was Mental Health Month, I think, around the world. We spent a lot of time there. I personally have been touched by that, in my family. And so really, really critical that we make sure agents are coming out. I think it's going to be a tough 12 months or so for people coming out of that. So make the agent's life better with great technology, make our partners' life better with great technology, and ultimately deliver, a happy customer in the end. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's a great place to end today's discussion. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. You've been watching me, David Dungay, on CX Today. If you like today's conversation, please give us a like and a share on social media. It's greatly appreciated. That's it from me. I'll see you next time.